Welcome to worship at First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York. I invite you now to join me in voice, body, and spirit as we sing our opening hymn, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This hearth, though all the world grow chill, will keep you warm. Peace shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
Welcome to online worship with First Unitarian Church of Rochester. So good to be in community with you this morning. Our mission is through spiritual connection and community, we listen deeply to others and ourselves, open to wonder and transformation, and serve together with love and humility. I am Reverend Margalie Belazaire, Assistant Minister here at First Unitarian Church of Rochester. Leading worship with me today are Reverend Cherry Halliday Kwan, Tommy Snell, Arson Jim Kachian, and Worship Associate Travis Watson. Behind the scenes, we have ushers, greeters who are making things happen so we can come together. We have a chat chaplain on hand, so if you're going through a hard time or if you're worried about someone, reach out to them to connect with our pastoral care team. A couple of announcements for you today. We will have coffee hour right after service, so please join us in connecting with our fellow UUs. And UU 101 is being offered after coffee hour at 11:30. And now I have a special announcement. As most of you know, this is the time of year when we select our Greater Good funding winners. Thank you to all those who behind the scenes did all the coordinating and all the hard work to make this happen. This year, the three candidates were City Roots Community Land Trust, which assists low to moderate income families with home ownership. The second one, Worker Justice Center of New York. And they train women farmers in leadership and development, organizing and financial literacy to facilitate their ability to exert control over their lives. And three, the third one is Greater Rochester Parent Leadership Training Institute. And they work with parents to build advocacy skills and civic knowledge to empower them to better advocate for their children. They also have developed an age-appropriate program for children as well, so that they can do the same, advocate for themselves. So the two winners are, drum roll please. Yay! Yay! All right, that is wonderful. So of course, you know, later early next month, we'll have our Greater Good service. So look forward to that. So now let's take a deep breath. As we settle into the sacred time and place. Please join me in our chalice lighting as we say our unison words along with me. May the flame we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, and to seek liberation and the fullness of community.
I'm not new to living somewhere where leaves fall in the autumn, but I am new to being responsible for that seasonal turn. As much as anyone can be said to own those gentle giants, trees, it's my first time owning property with trees on it. So I was a little panicked a couple of weeks ago when the volume of leaves in the yard became more than my compost pile could handle. More experienced residents of this terrain informed me that I had nothing to fear, that leaf removal is a thing. I had never heard of such a thing. Oh yes, they said. First, 2 people come with rakes, and then what seems to be a trash truck, but is indeed just a leaf truck with a giant vacuum attached to it. They will come, look it up. They were so certain that I would be taken care of. I was dubious. Again, I'm relatively new to these sort of cold weather cultural patterns, but this hyper curling style preparation to help me with my leaf volume seemed too good to be true. But I looked it up, and apparently last week was my time. I had learned about this just in time with the help of my friends. And so I got all my leaves ready. I raked the front yard into that, whatever that's called, where the grass is between the sidewalk and the yard. I used a wheelbarrow and my recycling bins and anything that I could muster to carry leaves from the back to the front. And these leaf piles were huge, immense. If this whole leaf removal thing was a scam, I was really and truly going to be screwed. This pile was immense. It was either Sunday or Monday that was the first day that these were supposed to be picked up, but I was ready for the soonest possible moment. So last week before church, I got my pile ready early in the morning, and I waited. And I came to all of you. The leaf sucker had not arrived. It didn't arrive on Monday either, nor on Tuesday. By Wednesday, I was texting my friend saying, what sort of fraudulent farce is this? Why would you let me think that an advanced team of 2 people with rakes and a giant leaf vacuum were coming? I knew it was too good to be true. I had lost faith. But on Saturday, yes, indeed, yesterday, as I eyed before sitting down to meditation, those giant leaf piles, I heard it. I popped up out of my meditation. Let no one tell you that spiritual practice should blunt you to the possibility of joy and surprise. And through my window, I saw not 2 people with rakes, but a thin yet powerful machine coming down the sidewalk, blowing the leaves into the street, followed then by somebody with a handheld leaf blower. And there was no leaf vacuum that I could see, but instead another truck that just pushed all my leaves out of the street and out of view. And I think this is why we come to church. We come to church because sometimes our friends and our community hold out some speck of the good news that we don't yet know about. We come to church because we leave a little bit of room for mystery at the end there. We come to church because there's always something new to learn. And because if we wait long enough, that thing that we hope will be true, but maybe we're not sure, it might be coming.
Please join me now in singing our next hymn, Sing Out Praises for the Journey.
Sing out praises for the journey, pilgrims we who carry on. Searchers in the soul's deep yearnings, like our forebears in their time. We seek out the Spirit's wholeness in the endless human quest. Look inside your souls, the kindling of the heart fire pilgrims knew. Find the Spirit always restless, find it in each mind and heart. Touch and hold that ancient yearning, kindling for a new-found faith. Stand we now upon the threshold, facing futures yet unknown. Earth behind us, wayside hostel, built by those who knew wild roads. Guard we ere their sacred embers, buried in our minds and hearts.
I don't think that anyone really enjoys moving. Now, take that existential dread and extend it into the thought of moving to a new country. I recently did just that, moving from the United States to my new home in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. It's about a 3-hour drive from Rochester, but at times during the process, it seemed that I was moving a world away. Everything from booking movers to finding a new place to live to getting my car exported from the United States was complicated by the specter of COVID-19. Nevertheless, my spouse Stacy and I persisted and crossed the border into Canada on the 25th of September. While the move itself was tough, I think the hardest part for both of us was picking up and leaving our church community. Stacy and I made a conscious decision to really get involved with First U as soon as we arrived in Rochester 2 years ago. We started with the choir, we joined Wellspring, and eventually went on to become part of the worship team. We have often noted that the church is the people, not the building, and I've certainly found this to be true. It's the people of the church who have said, nope, we're not going to let a little thing like a global pandemic prevent us from staying connected. It is the people of the church who have stepped outside the box and found new and awesome ways to worship and to fellowship together. So now I'm busier with church functions than I was before. Who would have thought that video conferencing would allow Stacy and I to go to choir practice one night, work with a Wellspring group on another, and make it possible for me to be with you all here today. I am so grateful for a church that makes me feel at home, even though I'm no longer living in the US. And so I invite you now into the spirit of generosity. Each week, members and friends of First Unitarian generously contribute to our offering, which helps to sustain and grow our community. This collection supports the work and witness of our church, and each week we split this collection with a community organization. We give away 50% toward partners helping those in need and working to create a more just and loving world. This week, we're sharing the plate collection with Veterans Outreach Center. Founded locally in 1973 by returning Vietnam veterans, Veterans Outreach Center provides employment assistance, job training, counseling, housing, advocacy, and other support services to veterans and their families in our community. There are a variety of ways to contribute, including Venmo and Simple Church. Please give now as you are able. Please join me now in a time of meditation. I encourage you to take a moment and breathe deeply, to be fully in the here and now as you listen to these words. Change. It is inevitable. And yet, so often, it seems to us a little death, piercing us in our places of greatest discomfort. Change tears away the routines, the well-trod, wonderful ruts we have worn, the familiar places and people and things to which we cling. Like a climbing rope on a precipitous mountain slope. Change progresses, oblivious of the fact that we are slowly but surely losing our grip, that the rope of well-worn structure is coming apart, fraying dangerously over the chasm. Change looks on, dispassionate, as the last strands part and we fall, and somehow find our feet on new ground, wondering where we are, but thankful to be alive.
In the spirit of grounding ourselves, I invite you in a meditative prayer spirit of courage, spirit of love, spirit of patience. We yearn to be ready, and we are restless. The world awaits. We are committed to unity, to joy, and to healing. And we know that there is much to be done for that to happen. May we be fearless. And when that's not possible, may we have the courage to move ahead anyway. Let us listen to our hearts, as the answers are in the deepest parts of us. And let us be able to be patient and to sit and do nothing when that's what we're called to do. And may all our efforts be fruitful. May it be so. Now that the presidential election is over, there's been much talk about healing and about uniting the country. It is an understandable response given that over the past few years, hate and discord had been the order of the day. There's been outcry for justice by those who believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, or you first principle. And there's been death, so many deaths of so many souls as a result of a relentless pandemic. So yes, it is understandable that we should want to move towards healing and uniting. I do wonder though, what do we mean to do to heal and unite as a nation? And what does it mean at all to unite? Do we know what we want to heal from? We also seem to have laid the responsibility to fix it all squarely on the shoulders of one person, the newly elected president, who, at least in public, seems confident that he is up to this astronomical task. I dare say no one person is capable of such a feat, no matter how much we desire that to be the case. In the same way that no one person, the outgoing president, is solely responsible for the disunity and the toxic state of affairs we find ourselves in presently, albeit he has fueled the fire. And the fact that so many believe that the problem is that simple suggests that we're not fully prepared to admit the enormity of what actually lays ahead of us. To unite is to come together or to bring people together for a common purpose. With a country as starkly divided as to what to rally around, as to what our morals and values should rest on, I say that we might be rushing ahead too quickly when it comes to uniting. And as we speak, a significant percentage of the population has not recognized the results of our most recent democratic election as valid. So some might say we don't even see democracy in the same way. And another percentage of us, though rooted for the candidate that won the election, were disheartened at how narrow a margin victory was reached. There was no blue wave, as Democrats expected. Keeping all this in mind, can we say with certainty that we are ready to come together? And what of healing? The idea of making well again, to restore health, to cause an undesirable condition to be overcome, to restore to original purity and integrity. So healing implies returning to a previous healthy, desirable condition that was once both innocent and moral. That's asking a lot for a country with such a complicated history, which begs the question, at which point in time were these conditions met? Have they ever been met? There's a false premise then when we talk about healing because of the assertion that we were once healthy as a collective. Maybe we need to be instead about moving forward with a new understanding of who we truly are, warts and all, and begin the work of rebuilding a place where there is indeed justice and liberty for all, and fix the system that has oppressed all of us. So again, I ask, what do we mean by unity and healing? If it means quickly moving on past the past few years for us who are people of faith, who are loving and compassionate, who are people who fight for the marginalized, that is not something we ought to get behind. But if it means sitting a while in the discomfort, taking stock of how we got here to such a divisive and hateful place, if it means asking how our UU values can be so markedly different from those of so many of our fellow Americans, and if it means, as Dan Albergati says, to try to be very quiet and listen for the sound of gears and moving water, listen to the sound of your heart. Be thankful that you are here, swallowed with all hope. Think of all the things you did and could have done. If that is what is meant by unity and healing, then that is something we ought to be able to get behind, especially if we are to bring forth our sixth principle goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. That is our aspiration. This sitting in the belly of the whale that Albergati speaks of, though, is not a comfortable thing. It is perhaps even scary. The whale, or the problem we face, is much bigger than us and can crush us. But that is where we are. It is where we have ended up. So instead of wildly fighting our way out at any cost, like a trapped creature, instead of being reactive to responding to individual acts, persons, or events, let us really look around and see what we have. Let's analyze what others who came before us did about this whale of a problem and why we're still dealing with it. And let's discern what has been right before our eyes all along, but we haven't seen it clearly. I invite you to try this with me for a minute. Close your eyes for a couple of seconds. Keep them closed. And now when you open them, don't look directly at the screen. In fact, turn your head and your torso completely around, then slowly open your eyes. And take a look at your space with renewed curiosity, as if you're seeing it for the first time. And if turning is not an option for you, just simply look around as far as you can. Take a moment. Just look around. What is that scratch on the ceiling? I don't remember this being here. Did you notice anything you hadn't seen before? And this is a place you're likely familiar with. And some of us might not have seen anything new, and that's the way it is, as we are at different levels of awareness. Some already know all the nooks and crannies, while others are wondering How did we get here? In order to move forward together to a healthier place, we'll need to be able to look at our communal home, our America, with fresh and objective eyes. Objective, curious, and engaging eyes. Amenable to the idea that things might not be as you thought they were. That your vantage point might not only be different, but is in contrast to another's. You have to be willing to give voice to truth, even the parts we find inconvenient. The parts that make us feel ashamed, that do not show us in the best of light. Many have labored before us and have made much progress. At the same time, there is so much more work to be done. We have to go much deeper still. I'm reminded of a deep wound on some part of the body where for years and years kept getting covered up with makeup, not receiving the full and proper care it required for healing to take place. Maybe it wasn't clear how damaging the wound was. Maybe there were no means to care for it, or it was figured that the wound needed to be left alone to mend itself. But every once in a while, this wound would break open and would have to be dealt with. At those times, it would be given some level of care, but never sufficient enough for true healing to take place. Just surface stuff like cleaning the general area and bandaging it up. This, of course, would appease the area for a little bit until the next flare up. And that wound would continue to fester until there was no choice but to deal with it, less risking losing that part of the body or the entire body itself. So this would mean getting in there and cleaning out all the muck, assess the course of treatment, then getting proper medicine and providing ongoing care. It means trying out different remedies until the appropriate one or ones are found. Beloveds, I believe a figurative wound has come to a head and burst open. We have ignored it long enough. And I believe we have an opportunity right now to do the hard work of fleshing out this wound fully once and for all. And as you use, this is right up our alley. And it will take a willingness to not look away when it gets difficult and uncomfortable. We will need to persist. Otherwise, 5-10 years from now, we'll once again be taken aback by the lack of forward movement. Look, we are a people that came together on stolen land, where stolen people were used to mine said land. Sit with me a minute and see how that feels in the body. That is our reality as a nation, and there is no escaping that. We are a part of this collective history. These are some of the discomforts and brutal truth we will need to move through, not around, in order to move forward together to a healthier place. None of this is easy, and there is no blueprint or formula on how to do it. There is no magic, waving a wand and poof, we've done it. But I think the figuring out is part of the work itself, that's sitting in the belly of the whale. And while we're in the belly of the whale, we can also do the things that can be done, that must be done, because the urgency of it all still remains. And we've learned over the past few months living with COVID, much can be done in isolation and in the midst of grieving over losses, especially the loss of lives and the loss of our pre-COVID lives. We know that we can learn new ways of doing things. And some of those ways can even be more effective and kinder. I remember being in a small gathering over Zoom while I was at Westport UU, when it was time for this member to check in. She talked about how grateful she was to be able to be in community with us. You see, prior to having services and activities online, she had not been able to attend anything for 2 years because of health reasons. And many people have re-entered our lives, or we've been in touch with others more frequently since COVID. No, I'm not implying that COVID is a good thing, but we don't have a choice but to live with it. And even in this horrible situation, we have found meaningful ways of being. We have also learned new ways of looking at things. We quickly found out that we are the church, you, me, us, all of us, and not necessarily the building itself. And a lot of what we've been doing has been trying this, trying that, keeping what works and discarding what doesn't. So it will be with the work ahead of us, the work towards unity and healing. And what this work will require most of us would be our love, for this is a labor of love, our full commitment and willingness to work for the good of the community. Let me end with the words of Valerie Kerr as they speak to what this work could look like. Rebuilding starts with weeping, with tears that fall like rain, with full and honest grieving for years of loss and pain, for suffering and sorrow that never had to be. Rebuilding starts with weeping for all those who are not free. Rebuilding starts with praying, with hopes allowed a voice, with visions for our country, with reason to rejoice. We offer up our spirits, our hearts and minds and hands. Rebuilding starts with praying for strength to heal our land. Rebuilding starts with loving, with care for every soul, with yearning and compassion that they all may yet be whole, that enemy and neighbor may know a better day. Rebuilding starts with loving, for love will show the way. Is this the darkness of the tomb or of the womb? I don't know. All I know is that the only way we will endure is if each of us show up to the labor. May we show up fully with love and dedication. May it be so.
join me now in singing our closing hymn, Rebuilding Starts with Weeping, a new hymn text by Amanda Eudice Kessler.
Rebuilding starts with weeping, with tears that fall like rain, with full and honest grieving for years of loss and pain, for suffering and sorrow that never had to be. Rebuilding starts with weeping for all who are not free. Rebuilding starts with praying, with hope so loud of voice, with visions for our country, with reason to rejoice. We offer up our spirits, our hearts and minds and hands. Rebuilding starts with praying for strength to heal our land. Rebuilding starts with loving, with care for every soul, with yearning in compassion that all may yet be whole, that enemy and neighbor may know a better day. Rebuilding starts with loving, for love will show the way.
And now, please join me in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I want to close with the words of Reverend Joe Cherry, as I think they will be a source of comfort for us as we move forward, I think, in the days and years ahead. If we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we, as people of faith, be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. And now worship has ended and the service truly began.